And I spoke to the mom outside of the precinct after I finished his arrest processing. Your child, something's wrong with your kid. And she was just in denial. And the kid is watching one of those giant roaches. It's walking across the sidewalk and he goes to step on it. And I touch him. Why are you stepping on the bug? And he was like, I like to hear the bones crunch. And I look at the mom. She heard this. This is not the normal reactions of a 12-year-old child. And it was sad to me because he's going to be like a serial killer. You're his next victim when killing and torturing animals isn't enough for him. When that thirst isn't satiated, he's coming for you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's episodes with Marique Bartoldus. And I might still butcher your name. Am I getting close?
No, you did it a lot better than when I got promoted. You're dead on. It's good. Yeah.
I'm just going to go with your maiden name and call you Monz.
Yeah, everybody does because nobody can pronounce my first name. It's all good.
Yeah. And that's what I read throughout the book.
Yeah.
So if you joined us yesterday, if you remember, Monz here was a 20-year veteran of the New York City Police Department. She's now been retired just a little over a couple of years, relocated to South Florida. We actually live fairly close to each other. So at some point, and her husband is retired NYPD also. So I'm hoping our paths cross. So I get to meet you guys in person sometime.
That'd be great. Go grab a beer.
I'll be your designated driver because I don't drink anymore.
Sorry, that's right. Okay.
But ginger ale. And what we're going to do now is I want to get into some of the stories from your book and some of your experiences because I love it. I love the book. If you haven't heard about the book yet, it's 20 and out. And there's a long title that goes with it. I have to look at a compilation of chaos experience while serving 20 years in the New York City Police Department. I got my copy on Amazon. You can get yours. I highly encourage you to get it. It's a compilation of 91 stories in here. This is a thick book. It's 400 pages long, but the chapters are maybe 3 to 6, 7 pages. And I like that kind of stuff. And if you've ever been in law enforcement or first responder or even military, you're going to like these stories. It's a real insider's look at the New York City Police Department, the biggest police department in the world, right?
Yes.
So I always thought at some point in my life when you're a kid, and I always want to be a cop since I was 10 years old. That's when I had my first run with the cops, and that was when law enforcement could use discretion. And, instead of putting us in jail, they took us home to our parents, which was a hell of a lot more painful than going to jail, I'm telling you, physically. My dad was a Southern Baptist minister. We had a strict household. So
the belt's got a lot of use, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He didn't spare that rod, let me tell you. Everyone I got, I probably deserve 3 times more. So I can't complain, right?
Yeah. Don't get caught.
Exactly. But but as you're growing up thinking you want to be a cop, and I thought I read Serpico. That was when that came out, and all the stories about New York City police. And then the show McCloud comes out, and you got this country bumpkin like me goes to New York City to be a cop. And then after I became a cop, I'm like, yeah, go visit New York. That's not me. I'm not. I think you have to grow up in that environment, or if you don't, you probably have to have a screw loose. I don't know. I mean, that's not to say I don't have a loose screw every now and then.
It's just more common in New York. That's all. Yeah.
Well, there's no shortage of idiots anywhere. If you don't believe that, go and listen to the first part of episode 1 of the Small Town Police Blotter. We always have idiots on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about in the first episode yesterday was you falling out of a police car. And I read that part, and at first I'm thinking, how the hell did you fall out of a police car? But then as I read through it, it made perfect sense after I read through it. But you got to share this story.
Yeah. So I was working patrol in the marked police car. I was in the passenger seat. My partner was driving. And I think it was a relatively slow night. It wasn't too crazy. So we're just driving around, and the radio, which we call Central, comes over, and we have a man with a gun, male black, wearing a white T-shirt. And that was the only part of the description. And it was literally a block or 2 blocks or something where we were driving. So I go over and I'll pick it up, try to call back, get more information. Was a gun actually displayed? Because half the time in New York, they say a gun is there because they know it gets the cops there faster. So they're like, there's guns everywhere. And you get there and it's just 2 people arguing. So
yeah.
So we got there before she was actually able to make the call back or whatever. And then as we're driving down the block, she's like, yeah, I can't reach anybody. And so we're driving down the block. So on the right side of the road, there's houses, right? It's row houses right down the road. And on the left side is a school. So the school is to the front of the block, and now we have the playground. And in between the playground and the school is big opening for, like, I guess, the trucks and stuff. It's a big driveway entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So right in the middle of the road, and it was almost like you could paint a picture of it. I see it clearly in the light on the concrete where the street light illuminates is a male black with a white t-shirt. And it's kind of still a little bit dark, and I can't really see where his hands are, and I can't really tell if he's got a gun or whatever. But there's nobody else on the street, and here is the guy fitting basically the description right where he's supposed to be. So my partner stops maybe 20 feet or so, 30 feet from him. So I kind of open the door a little bit, thinking I'm going to get out and use the door for protection, typical what everybody sees of cops, of drawing down on him and get on the ground and all that stuff. And he just is looking at us, and he's got the look. I think he's going to run. They kind of broadcast in their face what they're about to do just before they do it. And once you're a cop for enough time, you recognize it. And I think he might run. So, of course, he runs. So he runs directly into the playground area, right, through the fence. So my partner guns it because he hadn't even put the car in park because he saw the look too. So he guns it down the block. We're doing like 100 miles an hour, it felt like, down the block. He takes the turn, tires squealing. And as we go left, I feel my body fly out of the car. And you also have to keep in mind, like, we have the summons tins, and it's literally a tin, right, with the summonses in it. And then I have, because I'm the recorder, so I do all the paperwork for that night. So now I have the tin, literally a tin with all the paperwork, all the reports and everything in this tin. So that's kind of sitting there. Plus my radio was just loose. And then, like, I think I had like a coffee and, the drinks that you have. So everything that was there comes flying out with me. And I remember tumbling uncontrollably and thinking, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit my head on something. So I was trying to, like, tuck and cover as I feel my body just flying through the air. And then it's like, boom. And I just hit, and like the air just got sucked out of me. There was like a sycamore tree that I crashed into. And I was like, oh, what just, so I stand up and I'm, oh gosh, where's my radio? And I see my radio on the concrete. And I grab my radio and I get up and I go running into the park. And I hear my partner yelling at me, where the fuck are you going? You just fell out of a car. Forget that guy. What are you doing? And I got to go get this guy. So now I'm in the middle of the park, and my heart is already going from the adrenaline of being chucked out of the car and trying to process what just happened while still, like, trying to chase this guy who might have a gun. And I'm ducking down in the park. All right, calm down, slow your breathing. I don't see him. Where is he? So we ended up, he was in the wind. He was gone. And then my partner thought he found another guy who literally was wearing a white t-shirt coming out of nowhere. My sergeant shows up after the chaos ended, and he's, what happened to you? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I got like road rash all over because it was summer. So I was wearing like short sleeves and, and I'm like, yeah, it's, I'll just soap and water it. It's fine. We have like 6 jobs we're holding. We gotta go to the next one. So yeah, threw me out of the car.
Wow. I've been through a lot of things. I've been hit by a car. I've never been thrown out of a car.
Yeah.
But thank God you're fine on that. Did you catch the bad guy?
No, he got away. My partner was determined. We got back in the car and he's like, all right, let's go look for this guy. And I'm like, all right, let me just put my seatbelt on first.
Yeah. Forever from now on.
Yeah. Let me duct tape myself to the seat here.
Oh my gosh. Or Velcro.
Yeah.
Get some Velcro on there. One thing you just mentioned there, and I read it in the book a lot, is so when Central and Dispatch, you're working a sector, right? You have a geographical area you're responsible for.
Right.
And any calls that come in within that area, they're your responsibility, correct?
Yes.
But there's so many coming in. How do you know that you've got X number of, you call them jobs, or this request for assistance? Do they give them to you all at one time and then you prioritize, or how do you do that?
Yes. Well, so I did 4 to 12. So it was 3 in the afternoon to 11:30. Any jobs that were held over from the day tour that they couldn't get to. So right out of the gate, when you get in the car, you notify Central, 5 Ida, show me 98 from the precinct. What are you holding? She'll give you whatever's being held. And then as the jobs come over, she'll give them to you. What I used to do in my memo book, because they have phones now, which I could not be able to figure out. I like everything written down. But we had what was called a memo book. It was a book with lines. I would put the time that I got the job, the location, what type of job it was, and then I would put job number 1, job number 2 on the side. And then when I finalized it, I would put it in a box. So I knew, okay, job 1 that I got at, 3:30, I finalized at this time. And then, so that would kind of organize it for me. So I knew what we were holding. Everybody had their own system. Usually they would take like a piece of paper and stick it in the dashboard where the airbag is or whatever, and they would write the jobs on there and cross them out as they went to them. That was what a lot of people did, but I just kept it all in the memo book because we had to keep it there anyway. And I mean, you would be holding, usually, especially in the summertime, you could hold up to 5 jobs. Central can assign you 5 jobs, and then there's still jobs coming over. So if you're in one of the busier sectors, you'd kind of go, if it's not a priority, you go by order of when you got it. And then, so you'll be at a job, and then an assault in progress or a robbery in progress or a burglary in progress will come over. So it's like, sometimes you have to tell the people, listen, I have this priority, I got to go, or the cop calls for help. We'll come back. We got to go to this, especially like a car accident or something. That was kind of how you kind of juggled. But that's the part that I loved, because you're never bored. There's always jobs waiting for you to do. And then the other part too is you're also listening for your sectors that go around you, because if I'm responding to assault in progress, I know the sector next to me, either the north or the south one or whatever is adjacent to me, is probably going to come over backing me up. So all the jobs that they're holding are also on hold because they're coming to back me up on the more violent job that just came over. You're constantly in like a truffle shuffle of moving to what job or whatever. And sometimes you get lost and you're like, Central, what do you show me on? I got lost. What am I holding? What finals do you need from me? Because I'm totally lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading one part of the book where I don't remember what the event was. It was something very serious. It might have been where a police officer was shot. But when you came out, I think the sergeant said, hey, you need you back on patrol, where they're holding 35 jobs for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
So, like on the 4th of July, a lot of the times, because there's so many shots fired jobs and gang things and fights and stuff. I mean, there were times I remember you're just holding pages. It goes to, all right, I'm holding like 5 pages of jobs. And it's that particular night, I think it was just 2 sectors. It was me and another sector for the entire precinct, which, I mean, sometimes you just don't have the manpower. So it's, you take the north part, you take the south, and the sergeant kind of huddles around the middle and figures it out. So you're kind of on your own. So that night, because we had an officer involved shooting and it was a complete disaster, I was the only car out there. So I was handling, and at that point, it's like, yeah, nobody's here, go to the next one. But you actually have to show up. You can't just be like, yeah, no, I'm not going. Just, you have to show up there because you have inspections and other units within the police department who's kind of overseeing what you're doing, and they make sure that you show up to these jobs. So you kind of gotta like, yeah, there's nothing here. Okay, go to the next one. This is nonsense. So those are the fun nights where you're literally just rushing around and you're driving around like Pac-Man, just with the lights on, like, okay, here we go.
Holy cow.
It was fun. I mean, there were nights when it was so busy, you would literally be caravanning from one priority job to another because it was the robberies and the assaults in progress didn't stop coming over.
Especially when the full moon's out.
The full moon, it's a true thing.
It absolutely is. And even my wife, who was a nurse, she said it was the same way in the hospitals. I was always on nights till I became a Fed. But just same there. There's the crazies coming into the emergency room, the traumas and all that crap.
Yeah.
I know.
Something happens there. Yes.
Just the freaking werewolves are out.
Yeah. You try and take your vacation pics on the weeks when it's going to be a full moon.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned this to you earlier. Out of all the things that you were involved with, you did a lot of things, and like in your book, you talk about you're a true animal lover, which I think is very admirable, and your colleagues recognize that soft spot you had there for the animals, and then they didn't bust your chops about it; they actually supported you with it.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're
with good people.
I mean, you can beat up my kids and we'll probably fight, but if you hurt my dog, somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those things.
And they will not find your body. Yeah.
Yeah. But some of those things, that one place you went into where the cats were they were in the spay cages.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just nastiness.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken about that before because I just don't, sometimes the human depravity is just overwhelming that you don't understand how on your conscience you could be. I mean, my dog last night, I forgot to feed her dinner at 6:00, and at 6:30, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so,
I'm such a bad mother.
Half an hour late, I feel bad. These people, this rescue person who claimed to be this huge animal lover, animal rescuer, known all over the place. She was keeping these cats in these tiny trap, neuter, and release cages, which are basically like raccoon. They kind of look like raccoon cages. They're very tiny. And these cats were in there for like 3 weeks. I mean, they had diarrhea caked to their fur. They couldn't turn around. There was no food or water. And they're just sitting there in a 50-degree house on wire mesh. You can't even lay down. It was just this stuff that I saw when I was in the animal cruelty unit was horrible. But sometimes the guys would get pissed off at me because like when I was in street narcotics, we'd be on a stop, 4 people in a car, we got a lot of drugs or, whatever's going on. There might be a gun, something. And all of a sudden, it's the winter time, it's February, it's freezing cold, and I hear a dog barking. And I'm like, no, it's like what you said, or like squirrel. And it's like,
There goes Monz.
and they're like, Monz, focus. And I'm like, who cares? Whatever. It's Coke. Who cares? Dog, and they're like, so sometimes they would get a little fed up with me, but, I mean, there were times like, and people always think we're just such cold-hearted people. And there were people who don't have the affinity towards animals, but I was always the one where there's another story in the book where my partner saw a little kitten, I don't know, a month-old kitten. It was February and it was sitting on the ice, freezing cold. So we took it in and we, went to the store and bought it food and stuff. So, you always find the stray dogs and stuff in the precinct, and the cops will always, they'll take it home because it's a pit bull and nobody wants it. And, it's, you have a heart for those little creatures because they just can't help themselves, and people just suck.
They do.
That's just the truth of the matter.
Not sometimes, a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's sad.
Some of this is just common sense. You look, if it's cold outside, would you want to be out there on a chain with no wind protection? It's just use this thing up here that God gave us called a brain.
Yeah, we did an operation when I was the field intelligence officer. The first time I went out with the probation guys, so they would come to the precinct, and it's like a fellow agency. Like if you guys in the DEA came to us and you have to go to a house, it'd be like, okay, we'll accompany you because it's kind of like a etiquette thing. Well, it's our
Courtesy,
precinct, and we'll go with you. Yeah. So we would always go with these guys on their visits and just hang back. First, because we have the radio, so if something goes wrong, we have the hospital route and other cops, and there's 30,000 of us that are going to show there, but also just, in case there's a problem. So it's like us, the NYPD is here. So the first, group of houses that we went to, and these guys would just go visit people on probation and make sure they're, following the rules and stuff. So I go into the back to make sure that nobody's going to jump out the window. And I see this husky, and it was the middle of January. It was freezing cold. And there's a husky chained to a picnic table, and that's it. And it's just there, and the wind is whipping, and it's freezing cold. And the probation guys are knocking at the door, and nobody's answering. And I see the perp stick his head out from the second floor window, and I'm like, yo, get the fuck down here right now. And I start flipping out at him, and I'm like, what's going on with this dog? So now the probation guys, they're like, who is this chick? What is going on? This guy's on probation for a gun. Who, with the dog? Really? And so from that point on, those guys were looking at me like, she's going to be the one to, and this guy I had such crazy eyes, the female crazy eyes that the guys don't want to deal with. The perp was, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'll take him inside right now.
I'll never come back here again.
So, they laugh at me, but they were great. They understood that my priority wasn't always people. It was, okay, the animal needs immediate care, which was a hindrance for me in the animal unit. I had to leave because, you have a crime scene, right? The crime scene comes first. And for me, it was medical treatment of the animals comes first. So they conflicted.
Yeah. Well, there was another case where, and I'm not sure I got the story right, an officer was shot and there was a lack of blood. Is that the one? And then you decided to hold a blood drive?
Oh, no, it wasn't. Yeah, so it wasn't a cop that was shot. It was a civilian, a normal dude. It was during COVID. He was home from college and he was working at UPS or something, and he went into a bodega to grab a sandwich or something, and he got into a fight with a guy.
Yeah, somebody bumped him and...
Yeah, the fight goes outside and the perp's losing the fight. So typical coward, he pulls a gun and he suffered really horrific injuries. I had always donated blood. I mean, cops, we would do blood drives and stuff at the precincts because we're usually the ones that need blood because we get shot and, we're very well aware of like your mortality. So I called the blood center and I was like, can I just donate blood to this guy? Like, how do you find out his blood type? And if I have the same, can I donate to him? And they're like, well, we don't really do that, but you host a blood drive. So I said, all right, let's host a blood drive. So normally we would do a blood drive and have like 30 people donate. This was a 2-day blood drive, and I got in touch with his mom and, the NYPD football team. I mean, we had like a chief come down and donate blood. It was a 2-day event. We had over 100 people donate, and it was nice because it was a rallying of the community. It was like the cops in the community are working together. There's no race, there's no ethnicity, there's none of that BS that, everybody tries to get in between. It's humans helping humans. And he was a nice kid. He was a nice kid. It was sad what happened.
And I read that throughout the book, that sentiment comes across that I guess the way things are developing now, we're becoming so permissive in society and crime becomes more rampant and it's easy to develop that us versus them type thing. And it still is to a degree just because that's the way it is. Cops look out for cops. But I see when you're telling your stories, you're always promoting that community thing that, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, I don't care what color you are, or what your sexual preference is, what pronoun you want to use, all the crazy stuff that's going on out there. It's all, look, we're all living in this jungle together.
Yeah.
What can we do to help each other? So that was the very motivational part of the book. I don't know if you intended that, but that's what came across for me. So it's a positive thing, I think.
Thank you. It was, well, I mean, even the gang members that I would deal with, they knew I wasn't like a jerk. I wasn't going to make up some stuff and lock them up for no reason, whatever. And there was a respect. And it's, you do what you do, I do what I do. And that's just the game that's played. And there's no, I mean, I would tell them all the time, I would say, well, what do you, because I mean, like 9/11, it was like, when we get invaded by Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever, I go, do you think they're going to look at you and be like, well, you're the victim of it? No, they're going to be like, you're an American and I'm an American. We're going to kill both of you. Like,
yeah,
we need to be united here, even though it appears that we're on different sides. I have a job and you have a job. I get it, but let's treat each other civilly.
Yeah. It's strange to say there is a mutual respect there, but it's a respect that has to be earned. It's not just freely given.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, out of all your stories, what was the most memorable story that you recall? The one that's maybe a favorite story of yours or something we'd like to hear?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Think like coming to mind now. It's hard because there's so many, but I think one of the funniest, one of the funniest ironic stories. We had been looking. I was in anti-crime at the time, and during the day we had been helping one of the guys on our team. So anti-crime, we had I think 5 guys on our team and a sergeant. So one of the guys was moving. So the whole day, starting at 7 a.m., and we worked nights. We worked at 6 at night to like 2 in the morning. We're helping this guy move from like his house, like moving furniture and couches and beds and whatever. His wife was pregnant at the time, so she couldn't lift anything. So we're just exhausted by the time 5 o'clock rolls around and we have to go into work. So we go into work and we're like, we're going to have a down day. We're shot. The radio, it was quiet, which you never say. We didn't say that, but it was legendary. It was quiet. We're like, we're just going to chill out. So we went and got dinner because we were all starving and we're sitting in the back of a parking lot. And before we had gone out, our sergeant was like, listen, there was a blue Acura that had been doing carjackings in a couple of precincts that were adjacent to ours. And it was just a pattern that was emerging, and be on the lookout for this blue Acura. Okay, no problem. We're not looking for anything today. So we're eating dinner and my partner's phone rings, and it's this guy that on the midnights, he was a very, very good cop. And he's like very calm. And he's, what was that car description that we were looking for that they said was doing carjackings? So my partner's a blue Acura. So now the whole team, they're in one car, we're in another car, all the windows were open, we're sitting next to each other. And as soon as my partner says blue Acura, we all stop eating and we look at my partner because we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, crap.
So he puts the phone on speakerphone and the cop is, yeah, we're following the car down Jamaica Avenue right now. He's doing about $120. I don't know where you guys are at. And we were on Jamaica Avenue, of course. So I'm like, okay, so now put the food away. I'm still hungry, but whatever. So that gets chucked out the window. So the raccoons, they would follow our cars around because there was always food out the window. So we go, and sure enough, here comes our guy, lights and sirens. Luckily, there was nobody else on the road. It was 1 a.m, and he's flying down the road, and we kind of fall in behind him, and we're chasing this guy. And the guy that was chasing him, the marked patrol car, was very calm. He had been in a lot of shit, so he was able to keep his voice calm on the radio and transmit and stuff. So now you know the cavalry's coming because we're putting over the location. And the guy goes to get on the highway. As soon as he gets on the highway, he's going to open it up, and we're probably going to lose him. But this guy decided to open up before he got on the highway on the entrance ramp and lost control and did the turn and crashed. So we're like, wow, we got this guy. So we all go running over to him, tackle him to the floor. There's nobody else in the car. We got him. This is a good collar because this is a blue Acura. It's probably the one that was used in the gunpoint carjackings. So me being nosy, it wasn't my arrest. We helped him and they put him in the car and they're going back to the precinct. I'm like, let's just go see if there's the gun in the car. I just want to see. I want to know what's going on. Did they get this guy with him? Yeah, we'll take a bathroom break and go to the precinct. So at the time, the precinct that we worked at, there's the back parking lot and there's entrances on either side and it's surrounded by a 10-foot brick wall or whatever, right? So I walk into the parking lot, we park our car and I see the blue Acura that's parked back there. And as I'm walking to the door, I hear voices and I look to my right and I see in the opening of the driveway of the brick wall, I see like a car and like 2 or 3 cops are over there yelling at the guy, get out of the vehicle, get out of the car. So I start running over. And as I'm running over, I'm yelling my partner's name behind me because I know if he hears me yelling and sees me running, he's going to follow. I get over there And there's a guy sitting in the car. He's by himself. It was like a RAV4 or something. And there's a cop on one side. He's trying to get in there to get his hand. This guy's, and so it's like the struggle of trying to get somebody out of a car who's holding on for dear life, which really is like nearly impossible. So the struggle is going on. And there's no way for me to get into the fight. So I'm just waiting for them to be able to pull him out. And he takes the car and throws it in drive and guns it to the right. So he kind of runs over a bunch of the cops and hits a parked car on the other side of the street. And he hit the car with such force that he pushed the parked car up onto the sidewalk. It was like very strong hit. I couldn't believe how much gas he had hit to get that type of power up. Well, I'm just kind of like watching this. Wow. And now I see cops. It was like bowling pins. These cops are like in the street because they had gotten run over by the car. And I'm like, what is this, like bowling for dollars? What are these guys doing? They're on the street. So it was just a very surreal situation outside of the precinct. I see the guy puts the car in reverse, and I see the white lights on, and I'm directly in line with where he's going to go. And I look, and there's a cop on the floor on his back, just kind of like doing the turtle move or whatever. And I just see he's totally in line with the tires. His torso is going to get run over by this car. So I go running over to him, and it was like those dreams that you have that you're trying to reach for your gun, but you can't, or it's not there, or you can't pull the trigger. It's not working. It was one of those dreams where I just remember grabbing at him, and I said to him, get off the floor, in like a disgust. What's wrong with you? You're going to get run over. Not realizing like he had his legs run over, and I guess they were numb. I just remember grabbing at him because I got to pull him out of the way. I don't ever actually remember what happened. I kind of blacked out a little bit. And then the next memory that I have is the license plate is a foot from my face. And I remember I was looking at it, and then I see the white lights go off and the guy takes off. So I go running after the car because, I'm that fast that I can keep up with a car that's driving away. I grab my radio and I'm putting over the license plate, and I'm just screaming the license plate over and over and over. And I'm like, he ran over a bunch of cops. I need a bus, an ambulance, get everybody here. And then I kind of followed him. He was fleeing southbound on this road, and then he made a right-hand turn, and I lost him. Now there's chaos on the radio because Central's putting over the cop and assistance. I told him he ran over a bunch of cops. His cops hurt in the roadway, whatever. I turn around, and my partner had already gotten in the car, and he's, get in, and he's got his cigar hanging out of his mouth, like everything. It's just a normal night. So we're looking for this guy. They run the plate and they find out where he lives. We go to his house, we get his ID, and they end up catching him later on, but days later. But we went to the hospital because I didn't remember what happened to the cop. And I think he got run over. Like, is he okay? Is he alive? I'm thinking he got crushed by this car. So I get to the hospital, and I had pulled him out of the way. I have no recollection of doing that, but I had dragged him out of the way of the car, and I'm like, all right, he's okay. He's chatting with the nurse. Everything's okay. So that was a hysterical event because you expect nothing to happen. We're not doing a thing. And before you know it, there's full-blown chaos that happens. And
I had
seen that. Yeah, you're not prepared for it. But I saw that perp years and years later all the time. He was a regular in the jail cells of the precinct. And I would be like, seriously, bro, are you kidding me right now? So even though he tried to run people over, it was, yeah, I'm back. What's up? He'd be like, what's up, Monz? What's up, dude? But yeah, that's the life of a cop, right?
Right.
You just don't know.
When you walked in the hospital, were there a lot of other cops there?
Yeah, I think there were 4 or 5 cops that got hurt. They got run over by the car. So they were all in different rooms. But yeah, it wasn't too crazy then because there were a lot of people still looking for the perp. Mm-hmm. I just needed to go and see these guys. So I kind of went early. But especially when a cop gets shot, there's an ocean of blue. There's just hallways are loaded with cops.
There's no better sound than hearing those sirens come, is there?
The first time I called for help, I was trying to fight tears. I went full girl, and it's overwhelming when you're fighting for your life and they're coming. Just hold on. I think I wrote that in the book. Just hold on. Just don't let them go.
Well, I was thinking, isn't that the case where all the cops got hit by the car? When you came walking in, the guys are slapping you on the back, calling you a hero. You're leaving something out of this story here.
Yeah, I put that. I don't know why I shouldn't have even put it in the book. But when I walked into,
are you kidding?
Well, because in my mind, I don't remember what I did. Right, I know what I was trying to do, but I didn't remember actually doing it. And I walked into the first hospital room where one of the guys was, and one of the sergeants was in there, and he looks at me and he's like, "What's up, hero? You pulled him out of the way of the car." And I'm like, "Did I?" I almost feel like it was like stolen valor because I don't remember doing this. I remember grabbing for him, but I don't remember actually pulling him. But it was just, it worked out well. So sometimes when you're nosy, it's actually a good thing.
Well, and I don't bring that up to embarrass you. I bring it up because that's the law enforcement culture. It's true in the military. It's true in a lot of high risk occupations, I believe, where you're willing to sacrifice your life to help another one. And it's
Without a thought.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing, especially the longer you're on the job. So and that's the thing. The people we bring on here, I have to pull these stories out of them because nobody wants to take credit for it. Nobody. That's what I say. That you're a hero, whether you want to admit it or not. But the other thing that makes you a hero is you don't know that you're a hero. You're helping out a brother. That's the way
Yeah.
it is.
And I'm sure that they would have done the same thing for me if I was in
Yep.
that situation. I think I wrote about this too in the book, is I feel bad for normal people that they don't have that feeling of like, you can rely on the guy next to you. He's going to save your life if you need
Yep.
it. He's
Yep.
going to, he'll equally make fun of you when everything is okay and bust your chops about it. But
If you got thin skin, this is the wrong occupation to go into.
yeah, you're never going to survive. I mean, I think you remember the story when I got into the fist fight with the perp and I got punched in the face and they took the picture of me with the unicorn on my head
Yeah,
and made it the
a big knot.
screensaver. Son of a bitch. But yeah, so
But that's how you know you're part of the team.
yeah, if they
Yeah.
don't bust your chops, then there's a problem.
Yeah. Now, and law enforcement especially is not, well, I say that maybe because you and I were cops, but we are known to look out for our own. But there's one thing that regular listeners hear me talk about all the time. When Morgan was still on the show, if I'm on Patreon, it doesn't matter where I am. There's one understanding, and that is nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. So if you're a shit cop and you're doing things that the bad guys do, you're going to be ostracized. We're going to do everything we can to get rid of you because you're putting a bad smirch on all of us.
We have a bad enough reputation for no reason.
Exactly.
People hate us for no reason. The media or whoever it is that, we just go out there and kill people. We don't need any more bad publicity than what's already fabricated.
Yep. Now, there's another part in the book that I want to point out. And I went through and made all my little notes here. I don't think I showed people on there. You can see I tabbed a few places in the book as I was reading it. You got to check this book out. If you're really interested, it's as good as Vic Ferrari's book. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
It's very good.
Thank you.
One thing you brought up that I really admired was there's lots of opportunities where you have to go in, and a lot of times you're going to get your ass kicked. In this particular case, I think you guys are riding down the street slowly and somebody comes out and hiding back in the bushes there and goes, "Fuck the cops."
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't let that go. You can't, the uniform, the badge, it's not about the individual people. It's what the badge and the uniform represent. You're that thin blue line between anarchy and chaos and people who are just trying to live their lives. And you guys got out and then you addressed the issue.
Yeah.
But then we all saw that video a couple of years ago where two NYPD young officers were having milk thrown on them and water and they were walking away. I'd have got my ass kicked that day, but somebody else would have known they'd have been in a fight.
Yeah, that does not happen. I mean, the one time that you're talking about, it was a full blown 85. It was a foot pursuit. And so we responded. It was the end of the scene. Everything was under control. We're just, as cops, you kind of hang out after the scene as the adrenaline's wearing off and just BS with other cops. And then it's okay, Central's raising you. Let's get, mommy's calling. Got to get back to work. Hey. So I was just in the shadows and this guy was walking down the street with his girl and he wanted to be a tough guy. And I was in plain clothes at the time. I was in narcotics and he just turned around and he says to the cops halfway up the block, like Mr. Tough Guy, as he's past them. And he's like, "Fuck the pigs." And I just took a step right onto the sidewalk. So when he turned around, he was almost like he bumped into me. I was like that close to him. And he just looks at me and he's like, "Oh, fuck." And I'm like, "Yeah, turn around, buddy." Yeah. But he apologized. I'm like, "Bro, there's no reason for that bullshit." Like there was another time where the same thing happened and it was a dead end. And it was like, yeah, I'm surrounded here, but you know what? You're going to go to jail. I have a radio. There's 30,000 of us. We're going to come out of the woodwork and I have to protect the integrity of this uniform because if I don't, the next guy that you come across, you're going to be even more brazen with, and that cop's going to get hurt. And it's not, people confuse it for, oh, you're violating, you're abusing your rights and your authority. Well, no, there's rules that there's laws, there's disorderly conduct and stuff like you can't say things like that draw a crowd and, inhibit things. And there's all kinds of stuff. It's not like I'm working and operating outside of the legal system, but at the same time, you cannot disrespect the cops because the minute that you do, it's not that we abuse our authority. It's that the perps don't have respect for authority. That's why they're perps. So
Right.
if they don't fear you, we don't go out there and just beat people up for no reason. But if they don't fear you, they're going to run amok, which is what we're seeing now. And I mean, you would see at times you'd be in the cells and somebody would come in with the turban on their head because they fought the cops, and the cops are bloodied and bruised, but so is the perp. And the guys in the cells would be like, yo, you're not supposed to fight the cops. Don't you know any better than that? So it actually helped us and prevented fights, prevented people from fighting us, because they were like, you don't hit a cop. You just don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
That's gone now, which is not good for the civilians.
Well, and there was another, I don't mean, listen, young cops, I'm not picking on you. I promise you I'm not. I'm just pointing things out as things have changed over the years. I know I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this, but you guys were working, you had a young officer partnered up with you, and you guys got put on the detail, and you knew you weren't going to get off on time. And I think it was a Friday night.
Yeah.
And your partner was like, oh, no, I'm supposed to go dancing, so it's Friday night. But then didn't let it go. It didn't sound like.
No, she was a rookie. And I think a lot of the times for people who become a cop, they don't understand at 11:30 when you're supposed to go home at night, especially if it's a Friday or Saturday, you're not going to go home. So it was another cop involved shooting. And we were the other car. And so we had to go stay there because we were on the radios responding. So that, they have to make sure you didn't fire any shots and check your ammo and secure the scene and all that. So there's a whole bunch of boring procedure that goes along with stuff like that. But she was so aggravated that she's okay, well, we're just standing here, so why can't we just go? And I'm like, well, we can't go, right? Because the sergeant, first of all, told us we have to stay here, but also because we have to now go to the borough and be questioned by the investigative team to see what we saw, what we heard, did we fire any shots? And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? This is bullshit. I got my dancing shoes in my locker. I want to go to the club. And for like 4 hours, she was on a tear, and it was great because she killed 4 hours of boring time. And I'm sitting there and I let her vent because I get it. I hear you, but you are no longer in a 9-to-5 job. You are in a job where you are going to have hours of boredom and seconds of chaos where you're not going to go home for days. Welcome to the NYPD.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I think a lot of that is culture on the fact of how they grew up versus how we grew up.
Yeah.
If the job required it, that's just, are you happy about it? No, but that's what the job requires.
Yeah.
And that's,
you handle it.
Yeah. And that's why it takes a special spouse to put up with that kind of crap. My wife, Connie, she gave up her nursing career multiple times for me to take promotions, transfers, go live overseas, all that kind of stuff. So afterwards, where I can try to pay back a little bit of what she endured and gave up for me, I'm still not doing a real good job at it because it's all about me. Yeah.
It's hard to get out of that. You've been trained that way. It's a conditioned response.
And I'm pretty sure she would agree with that. Another thing that I like about your book is it's not you just telling stories that some are funny, some are serious, some are just interesting, but you kind of bring correlations to other things. And the one I'm thinking about is where the kid took a weapon into the school and they had taken the metal detectors out because somebody thought, well, we're creating a poor environment for our children. This is, irresponsible of us as adults to create this environment that's going to change their mindset. Well, look how violent the world is. And what's the purpose of the metal detector? To make them be more aware of their own personal safety?
Right.
To protect them? Or is it for some politician to say, oh, we're being kinder and gentler and I'm taking the metal detectors out?
Yeah. Dumbest move.
The wrong reasons. It's all about them trying to, I try to stay very apolitical in here. I have about that much respect for most politicians because I think most of them are in it for themselves.
Yeah. The optics of things sometimes it's the optics are irrelevant because if you're worried about the optics of children walking into a school and being made to feel like criminals, if you're worried about how they're going to feel, worry about how they're going to feel when they're shot and they're bleeding out. Let's worry about that reality because it's just a matter of time, really. I mean, it's an inevitable thing and it's such an easily prevented thing. I mean, that one scenario, which was hilarious also because I was just going to get food, of course, because that's once again, nothing's going on.
Right,
I'm starving. And I said to my partner, I got to go get food. I haven't eaten in 6 or 7 hours. I'm dying here. So we just were going to get food, and the restaurant they were going to grab the Chinese food was across the street from the school. And as we're pulling up, and now I have nothing. I have a gun and a
You
radio.
didn't take
That's
your
it.
vest.
I don't take my vest because I'm going to get food and I'm going back to the precinct to eat. I don't care what's going on. And so now we're going through the school with no vest on, looking for a guy with a gun, mass chaos. Did he fire around? How bad is this getting? But yeah, it's frustrating because these decisions that are made with the idea of trying to make people feel good has negative repercussions on you're making victims now, and you're also putting cops' lives in danger too, and the school safety officers who were there too. And it makes no sense to me because it's like, okay, we're going to guard our banks with metal detectors, and the post office has metal detectors, and all of Congress has metal detectors. You got to walk through to get in there, but the kids don't really matter. We're going to take that out because we don't want to make them feel like they're criminals. No, you're making them feel safe. Good job.
I mean, I know you don't know me very well, but I'm like right on the edge of getting on my soapbox here because I could go so many places with that. I go off on little tangents, and I don't want to do that here because we're having fun, and then it ends up I get up pissing myself off when I go off on these tangents. But the end of that story was, so you're a patrol officer at the time, right, or a detective?
I was a field intelligence. I was working with like informants and buying drugs and guns and stuff. It was like a down day for us.
But somebody took the initiative and brought your vest to you and your partner out in the field, didn't it?
My boss, he was a good guy because he heard me come over the radio.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he really knew that we left because I just was like, give me the keys, I'm out of here. And he's like, these guys just left the office and there were our vests slung over the backs of our chairs. And he was like, holy shit, that's a big no. You don't do that.
But just because he outranks you, look, he's doing what he can to help out.
He jumped in a car with another cop who was responding from the precinct, and he found us, and he's put these on, idiots.
I love it.
Do that again. Yeah,
that's called leadership.
Yeah. I mean, he's military. He was a prior military guy, so he was a great boss. He put up with me too, so he should get accolades just for that.
You know, I mean, sitting here listening to you and reading your book, I could see working with you would be a lot of fun.
Oh,
I mean, because you're going to get into shit every day, but I don't think I'd ever want to tick you off.
Yeah, no, the book of James with like tame your tongue. It's like, no, this is the serpent that just goes out and lashes. But yeah, I thank you to all the guys who work with me. I'm sorry, thank you for putting up with me. I mean, my husband was my previous partner at one time, so he married me. So I guess I couldn't have been that bad, but
No, not at all. And I also like the very first opening in the book. This is the very first thing I tabbed. And can you tell I'm promoting your book because it's that good?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I just want to read the first couple sentences here. Most people's first question when they find out I was a cop in the NYPD is, "Did you shoot anyone?" Stupid question. So to completely run the surprise, nope, never shot anyone. If that's the story you're looking for, I just saved you a ton of reading. You're welcome. Now, why did I take the time to read that? Because the vast majority of cops don't shoot anybody in their career. That's not to say you didn't go into dangerous situations and pull your weapon out on a regular basis, which in New York City, I'm guessing it's pretty much every day. When I retired or when I left the city, I shot at people on the city police in the small town. Never hit anybody, thank goodness, and I got shot at and didn't get hit. But we had those safety holsters back then, and when you pulled your gun out, this back in the revolver day, it rubbed the metal on your gun. I had to have my handgun. That was my personal weapon. I had to have it re-blued because it had worn the bluing off. So, and that's not why you become a cop.
No.
Let me ask you. I mean, other than excitement, what was your purpose in going into law enforcement?
Chasing perps.
Which leads to
I wanted to put people in jail who victimized other people. I wanted the sense of justice that I felt was that's why I wanted to be an attorney for a while. I wanted to be a prosecutor for a little bit because I'm like, you need to right the wrongs that are done. But I have this weird addiction to adrenaline, so that's what kept me in the police department.
But this is a simple statement that it all boils down to. You wanted to help other people, didn't you?
That's all it is. I don't want to shoot anybody.
Have you ever met a cop that said, I became a cop because I want to kill somebody?
Never, not once. Although I have met a lot of people who said, all you cops are just killing everybody out here. Yeah. Which is just that's just wrong.
Oh, and some of those are politicians, aren't they? Okay, I don't want to go there.
Aim for the legs. Okay. Yeah. I'll work on that.
I've even had people who I grew up with that were avid hunters would ask me, how come you just don't wing them? Yeah, why don't you shoot him in the head? Shoot the gun. We see it on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Dude,
shoot the finger off and they can't pull the trigger. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, let me shoot at you and see if you can shoot back at me and hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
but
moving target too.
yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's just
Let's make it
unbelievable.
interesting. Yeah. It's hard enough to hit center mass on a stationary target. Forget about all the other scenarios.
Yeah. And I want to go back to one other point we made in the first half of our discussion was holding kids responsible for their actions.
Yeah.
You're a parent. I know that you've got 2 children. I've got 4 children. I've got 5 grandkids now. I try to teach my grandkids the same thing I try to teach my kids is that there are consequences for every action every decision you make has a consequence, right? Good, bad. I mean, you eat crappy food, you're going to go to the bathroom with diarrhea. That's a bad consequence. You know, you help cats out or start a blood drive, you're helping people. That's a good consequence. But in one of your stories, you're talking about a mom who just couldn't accept that her kid could have done something wrong and start making up excuses rather than holding that child accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember times, it might be the same for you, I'm not sure, but you can verify it or deny it here. You're dealing with young people, and if you see when the parents show up that they're going to take care of business, I didn't charge them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there were times when you had to hold the parents back because they were going to beat the balls off of their kid. Like, yeah.
like my dad.
Yeah. 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 It's the fury is just, but yeah, most of the time it was the parents were like the defense attorney for their kid who had just committed. I mean, in the case you're talking about, it was a kid who killed a kitten with a broomstick handle and he beat it so many times that it was literally flattened. They had to scrape the poor kitten off of the pavement. And the mother was, I mean, the video showed the hitting. You saw the kitten running, you saw him chasing, and then the hitting. And then you didn't actually see the broomstick handle strike the cat, but the mom was, well, you didn't see it. So maybe he was just hitting it when it was already dead. But at the same time, you have a concern for that mom because here's a child who has this proclivity towards violence, right? And it's like our experience is it's only going to get worse. This is not a problem that's going to resolve itself. And this child is going to become a big teenager who's going to outweigh the mom. And I spoke to the mom outside of the precinct after I finished his arrest processing, and I'm concerned about your safety. Your child, something's wrong with your kid. And she was just in denial. And the kid is watching one of those giant roaches. It was the South Bronx. So it's walking across the sidewalk. And he goes to step on it, and I touch him. I'm like, why are you stepping on the bug? And I like to hear the bones crunch. And I'm like, holy. And I look at the mom, like she heard this. This is not the normal reactions of a 12-year-old child. And it was sad to me because this kid's going to be, does he wet the bed? Does he make fires? Because he's going to be a serial killer. You're his next victim when killing and torturing animals isn't enough for him. When that thirst isn't satiated, he's coming for you.
Here's a future book or a future movie about this kid.
Horror story. Yeah.
So you're hitting 20 years in your career. Why did you decide to retire? Was your original plan just to do 20 and out, or what helped you make that final decision to leave?
So yeah, well, I mean, for New York City cops previously, the new tier is a different pension system, but for our pension system, you do 20 years of service and you are eligible for a pension. So for most cops, they would leave because after that, you're like rolling the dice with it. If something happens, like even when I was getting close to retirement, my boss was, all right, we got to go out and lock this guy up. And he was a known fighter and I'm not going. Like, because any type of situation where there's an allegation made against you or something happens, you are not allowed to retire until that has washed out. So you kind of like for like the last 6 months, you're trying not to move at work. So I mean, we had already, it was after COVID and the vaccine mandate to come down, and I was fighting that and stuff. So for me, it was they wanted to basically fire me because I was refusing to take this thing. So it was kind of like I had to leave before I was really ready to leave. I luckily had like a lot of time built up and stuff, but I was going to leave anyway at 20, but I left like a few months earlier than I really wanted to because I didn't have much of a choice. But I think also you get kind of like burnt out, especially for like us dinosaurs when the times change and you're kind of accustomed to the way things are. And now like, okay, now like I was driving around and I had a pickup accident on the highway, right? So I go over the radio and I'm 5FIO. Can I just have a sec to respond? I have a pickup car accident, 53. No injuries. I just need somebody to come for the paperwork. And so I hear on the radio, everybody's like, and I'm like, what did I say wrong? Like, did I not put the transmission over? So the sector gets there and they're like, Monz, the accident reports aren't paper anymore. It's all on the computer. It's on the phone. And I was, oh gosh, I've aged out. How did that happen? So the times were changing so much that I didn't The body cameras, which I think were a good thing. I was very pro body camera, but I didn't like the whole thing with like the paperwork that was assigned to that, and when you had to turn it on, when you didn't have to turn it on, and doing the jobs with the phone, and the memo book is now on the phone and stuff. And this is just too much change, and
Yeah.
I'm just too old for this. And so I was kind of, and then being in Intel, you had to kind of follow social media and stuff. And I don't know anything about this. What is Instagram? Snapchat? What is it? And they're like, don't hit the picture. Don't touch the picture. I'm like, why? You touch it so it freezes. It's paused. No, if you hit it, then they know you're watching it. This is just too much for me. I can't handle this. So I was aged out. I didn't want to be aged out, but I was already too old. But yeah, so it's kind of, most cops retire at 20 years. You're just too old for it. I mean, how many fences can I hop? I already broken my coccyx once before chasing a perp. I'm too old for these guys. They all run faster than me.
I got to say, when I read that story, I might have wiggled in my chair a little bit, break your butt bone.
I still feel it. It's like, yep.
Oh, I've had multiple surgeries after retirement, everything from knee replacement to repairing the rotator cuff to reattaching ligaments to reattaching tendons. And you're paying for the fun that we had back in our younger days, I guess is a nice way to look at it.
Yeah, it might only be 20 years, but it's like really 60 because the mileage that it puts in your body is just the no sleep.
Yeah. And you look back on it, would you change a thing?
No, I loved it.
Yeah. I did too.
Yeah.
I did too. And so now I get to live vicariously through folks like you and speaking at law enforcement conferences, things like that. So you still get
it's awesome. You get
that's what you miss, is the camaraderie.
Yeah. I mean, for people who don't understand, like the people that I worked with, I'm still friends with them. We still talk all the time and text, and they'll come down here and visit, or if my husband goes up, he'll go hang out with them and stuff. And it's like a bond that just cannot ever be broken. And it's not like we were in active combat, but you kind of were, because you got hurt a lot.
Yeah.
It's just part of the job. So you rely on the guys you work with.
And it's I don't even know that there's a comparison, because you, especially in your position in NYPD, you're continuously every day for 8+ hours. I don't know how you even got a meal break.
So, I mean, for years, my partner and I, when I was on patrol, we were like, we're just not going to bother with meal, but that was also another thing too. Like if I wanted to go on meal, you get your time, right? Every sector has a different time, and you go over and say, okay, can I go on meal? But if Central's holding jobs, you can't go on meal. So everybody would work to pick up jobs no matter where they were. Just give me everything you're holding, let them go on meal. So it was even just trying to get on meal, everybody looked out for each other so that you can just have an hour break to go and, hit the gym, or just, take a 20-minute nap or whatever. So
I love it.
We all looked out for each other. It doesn't stop because you're off the job, but it was a wonderful part of the job.
That's what I loved about it. I do. That doesn't mean we all held hands and sang songs every day. There's times when you might go out in the back alley and have a little tussle back and forth. But when it was over, it was over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you responded to a job and locked somebody up together. So it's
still trust each other.
Yeah.
So one final question for you here. Would you recommend a career in law enforcement today? Well, what's your thoughts about that? Because things have changed so much. And you could tell she didn't know I was going to ask that question, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't. As much as I admire the cops that are out there now. I thank them when I see them. I tell my kids, you always say thank you for your service when you see a police officer. But until the barometer changes, which I guess is why we're losing so many cops, until people come to their senses and stop with this stupidity of defund the police and cops are bad and all this nonsense, and realize cops are the only thing that's preventing complete disorder.
Right.
My favorite t-shirt is like, when seconds count, the police are just minutes away. Like, you need more of us, not less of us. And the ones that are bad are always held accountable, right? We don't like them. The good cops don't like them. It's not the brutality and all the stuff that you see. If you really get down to the bones of it, what you think happened isn't really the truth. And they're really, for the most part, the bad cops are held accountable, and the rest of us are just trying to help you. And you don't understand the criminal element that's out there. You most of the time don't even see it until you're a victim of it. And if you don't have us out there, you're just a walking victim.
Yeah. You read these studies, and I don't know if it's politics or not. I think it is, but I guess I'm getting to be suspicious in my old age. But they say violent crime is going down. Well, watch the news every day. I mean, right here in Orlando, we're not even that big of a city. We're 500,000 people or so down here. And look how many shootings we're having every single day. And the cops are out there. And we have One of the things I've gotten to meet the chief of Orlando Police Department. I've met the sheriffs in Seminole, Orange, and Osceola counties. Think the world of them. I think they're doing a fantastic job. OPD is a 900-man agency that has a very small vacancy rate, and it's mostly from attrition. It's not people leaving. So it's a department that people want to work for. You got a chief in there that takes care of them, and you got a city council that looks after the police department. So that's all good things, but we're still seeing crime go up. So
if you don't have a mayor and a chief of police that back you up,
yeah,
no, don't go in there because that was the problem in the NYPD is you don't have the backing. You have everybody looking for what you did wrong. They're looking for a reason to go after you as opposed to being like, yeah, okay, that was necessary force that was taken. So
yeah,
it depends on. I guess it does depend on the agency. I don't want to completely like shit on the police departments. There are great chiefs that back their cops up, but yeah.
Well, I think we're very fortunate here in Orlando, and Eric Smith is the chief, and he has tentatively agreed to come on the show, so we'll get him on here. And
fantastic.
Yeah, and here's a man who came up through the ranks. He impresses me every time I turn around. It's I saw a video on I think it was LinkedIn maybe a year ago, and they have an audio-visual department within the department, and they apparently one night a week, either evenings or midnights, he comes out and rides a shift. Comes out in uniform, goes out and supports the guys.
That's awesome.
To me, that's leadership. I reposted that on LinkedIn because I'm turning into a nerd, I guess, when it comes to social media. But I think the last time I looked, there was like 45,000 hits on it. And all I wanted to do was promote, here's what a true leader looks like. So real proud of the man.
That's amazing. Yeah. A good leader is going to have good cops following him. So it inspires confidence.
In fact, we're going to have here on November 11th, which your episode will come after that. But I've got Orlando police officer coming on who was in the Army stationed in Afghanistan for 15 months and went through an unbelievable battle over there. And then rather than letting circumstances get him down, continued to be the hero that he is and has now been with OPD for 10 years, being a leader there. So you guys are just so motivational. When I say guys, I'm talking to you too. It's just to hear the things that you went through and you think a girl can't be a cop? Take this girl on right here. I want to be a witness and take a video of it because I think you might get your ass kicked.
I don't know about nowadays. It's like I gotta stretch first. Hold on. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Back in my heyday, maybe, but yeah.
I think that fight is still there.
Well, yeah. Mentally, I'm in it, but no, yeah. I have an amazing respect for these guys, especially the guys that have been in the shit and they've come out, and I'm grateful to them, especially now being a civilian. I'm grateful to them for putting their lives on the line to help us all. And
right.
People don't understand when you lose that protection, you're going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be bad.
It is. Ladies and gentlemen, respect your law enforcement, please. The fact you're teaching your children to say thank you to law enforcement, I think is phenomenal. That's the way every family should be doing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Our church that we go to here in Orlando, there's usually a Florida trooper there providing protection, and I always he doesn't know who I am. I've never introduced myself to him, but I do say, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you being here today. What did that cost me? Not a damn thing.
Not a thing.
Show a little respect.
Right.
So it's been an honor to have you on here, Monz. I'm going to continue to call you Monz because that's easier to pronounce your first name.
I respond to Monz. Marique, it's like, who? Thank you so much for having me. This was a really good time. And thank you for your service as well. I mean, you were involved in some serious stuff. So I'm a nobody compared to guys like you who have really put your lives on the line. And I thank you all for doing that for us.
Well, you just gave me goosebumps. Thanks for saying that. I don't subscribe to that. I think the way I explain it is I got to work one really big case that got blown out of proportion by a show called Narcos. So but still, everybody.
Think of it that way, but it's bigger than that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Got to get this book, 20 and Out. It will be posted on our website with a link, so it'll take you straight to Amazon. You got to show Monz here some love on social media. The only thing I could find her on was Facebook, and it's by her name, Marique, Marique. Well, look at the front of the book. That's easier than me trying to spell it because I'll butcher it again. And if I do it enough, I'm afraid she'll get mad at me and say something. But
yeah, it's every letter except for Z. Just type it all in there. Something will come up.
My Italian friends, there's Lou Velozzi. He'll probably want to meet you. He's retired ATF. He's got a TV show out.
Nice. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, he's doing good. But he's got a wonderful wife, just a real sweet lady. Oh, anyway, thank you. It's an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for your service on behalf of all the people in New York City, whether they like cops or not. If you don't, screw you. That's what we're about here. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, your husband, you know how to contact me now.
Likewise. Thank you. Yes. And we have a fridge full of soda, so you're always welcome.
Have you gotten into sweet tea yet?
You know what? That whole Arnold Palmer thing, I'm in it. I'm almost a complete
No,
Southerner right now. I just got to cook a
no.
little bit differently, and no,
No,
just sweet tea.
you got to brew your own tea with real sugar.
Okay. I'll work on that.
Well, when you do,
Slow transition.
your lower chest will become bigger than your upper chest. That's the
Oh,
problem
wait.
I have. But Monz, thank you so much for all our
Thank you so much for
listeners.
having me.
Thank you for joining Monz and I today to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, and that's the game of crimes. I'll see y'all next week. Well, unfortunately, that's it for this week's episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. Thank you folks so much for taking the time to see and hear some of the best true crime content you can find anywhere. None of this would be possible without your support. If you didn't know this already, Game of Crimes is now on YouTube. Just type in Game of Crimes Podcast in the YouTube search bar. You can send me your comments on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or to our email address, which is gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com. Our website, it's gameofcrimespodcast.com. That's where you'll find all our episodes, books written by our guests, merchandise, and more. If you're looking for even more content, now go over to patreon.com/gameofcrimes and sign up. There you'll find several bonus episodes each month, ranging from serious and current topics to some silly and fun events. And you can even get early access to each week's interviews before they drop on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can even subscribe for free and hear the first 5 minutes of each episode, and that's to help you decide if you'd like to spend some of your hard-earned cash to hear more. That's patreon.com/Game of Crimes. To all our guests here on Game of Crimes, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I mean that sincerely. Thank you for your service to your communities, your countries, and for taking the time to tell us about your adventurous lives. May God bless and protect all the men and women in law enforcement, our military, and all of our first responders. And you know what? This goes for all of our listeners as well. Thank you for your continued support. And just one last thought here. It's okay for us to have different ideas and different opinions, but it doesn't mean we can't continue to be friends. All right, my final thank you. Thanks for joining me again to play the biggest, the baddest, the most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes. I'll see y'all next week.